Hi talented people, my name is Rina. Thank you for clicking to watch this video. Finally, winter is coming to an end and we are welcoming spring with the first spring month, March. March for me has always been associated with women, probably just because International Women's Day is on 8th of March. So I didn't think long on the theme for this month and decided that it's going to be all about women. I want to dedicate the spread to some of the most iconic women in human history and fill the pages with their famous and inspiring quotes. So if you want to see how I did my March setup, keep watching and enjoy. I'm busting out my watercolors again this month because I want a softer color palette. You know, those trendy boho style, minimalistic abstract paintings on Pinterest? I'm going to try to recreate those vibes today. First, what I'm going to do is color in this sketch of women done on a watercolor paper. It's a group of women that I've tried to draw as diverse as possible. And the main challenge here will be to get the skin colors as realistic as possible, which I've already failed with the very first woman by making her face too pink. Sorry about that, I just wanted to try to use this pale pink brush pen, which in retrospect was not the best idea, but I didn't know how else to create a sort of pinkish white skin. Another thing that you need to have in mind when working with watercolors and watercolor paper is that when the pigment seeps into the paper and dries out, it becomes a lot more muted. So it's certainly okay to go a bit deeper with colors. Just make sure to blend them well. This part took quite a long time, especially because I had to wait for the colors to dry sufficiently before going in with another colors next to it. Otherwise, they would bleed into each other. If I had more time, I'd probably color in their clothes too, but it would have to be a specific color scheme so that everything looks cohesive. And developing a color palette with watercolors takes a lot of time. So I decided to leave the clothes white as is. Overall, I like the end result, considering that I'm not good at drawing at all, especially drawing people, and this little project was pretty ambitious for my skill level. I went on Pinterest looking at various options of how I can draw a diverse group of women, and here are some examples that I was using as reference. And while I'm finishing the painting, let me talk a little bit about the inspiration behind the theme of this month. So like I said in the beginning of the video, March 8th is the International Women's Day. I know that not many countries celebrate or even aware of this holiday, but here where I'm from, it's a pretty big deal and it's one of the main holidays. It's officially a public holiday and most people congratulate their mothers, wives, girlfriends, colleagues, and just any women they have in their lives. It is very common to give flowers and expensive gifts too. I don't like what this day has become though. Originally, it started as a day commemorating women protesting and fighting for their rights. It was very much a feminist day. Nowadays, it has very little to do with feminist movements and women's rights. People celebrate women but also wish them to stay beautiful and feminine and gentle and to continue inspiring men, as if women serve only one purpose in life, which is to be a pretty accessory to men. Instead of serving as a reminder of the good fight feminists of the past had fought and continue fighting to this day, 8th of March has been reduced to yet another consumerist holiday when men spend a lot of money on expensive gifts and women are conditioned to expect these expensive gifts. I wish people remember the true origins and purpose of this day, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, back to the video. I finished the painting and it will go nicely on the cover spread. What I'm doing next is painting random shapes with watercolors. For this setup, I'm using a color palette that consists of pinks, yellows, browns, reds, and a little bit of blue and black, but I'm trying to make them muted, almost earthy. To come up with this palette, I simply googled boho art color scheme and there were a lot of examples. I also found a lot of examples of the boho art on Pinterest that gave me an idea of what shapes, elements, and colors are commonly used in this type of art and how they are arranged. So you will see me drawing not only these shapeless blobs, but also arches and lines and dots and other patterns. For the title, I'm using a pretty standard and simple font, and for some reason I'm putting the title a little bit off the center just to make it interesting. I'm also outlining the color blobs with 2 lines, and you will see me do that a lot in this video. I'm sticking the painting I did earlier on the page and finish up with a floral sticker and washi tapes that I bought off of AliExpress. Next up is the calendar page. I'm starting with drawing the arch using contrasting but still earthy toned colors. I'm using yellow, brown, dark blue, and red, so it looks like a little rainbow, even if there's less than 7 colors in it. And it's okay if the arch turns out uneven or crooked or asymmetrical in any way. This way it looks more messy but also hand-drawn, like a true boho style drawing. After I'm done with the arch, I'm adding a color blob in the corner. If you see me doing things in a very random order, it's because I have to wait for some things to dry out before I draw other things right next to them. Otherwise, they'll bleed into each other or I'll smudge them with my hands. So I like to do something else in the meantime. So while the drawings are drying out, I'm moving straight to the second page, and I'm sticking another piece of watercolor paper onto it with a quote that I penciled in earlier. It's a quote by Maya Angelou that says, "Each time a woman stands up for herself, she stands up for all women," which I think is a beautiful saying. I draw more shapes around it in a way that they overlap, and I outline the words with a brush and black paint. The quote and the font in which it is written are entirely copied from this image that I found on Google, and I like how simple the font is. The calendar part takes up only one page this time. I don't do one-page calendars too often just because I like to write events directly in the calendar cells, and for that the cells have to be large enough. But this time I wanted to try a different approach, and instead of writing the events in the calendar directly, I'm going to use color-coded dots and write the events in the boxes below. So, for example, if I have someone's birthday on 10th of March, I'll put a red colored dot in the 10th cell, then put that same red dot in the events box below, and write the event's title next to it. I found this idea again by Googling, and I'll put the original image and its author on the screen right here. The spread is almost done. I'm finishing up with a couple of stickers and washi tapes, write the title of the month, draw some more random shapes, all just to fill in the empty spots, and the spread is complete. Moving on to the next page, which is the habit and mood trackers and the budget planner. The budget planner is a new addition to my monthly setups, and it's the first time I'm doing it on camera. I think I figured out the layout pretty well, but the actual filling in part is still a bit tricky because I'm having a hard time to calculate how much money I'm going to spend on certain categories. But planning expenses ahead is something that I've set as a goal to myself this year, and I want to learn what works for me and what doesn't. As you can see, because I included the budget planner in the setup this month, it took up the space that mood trackers usually occupy. Normally there would be a whole page dedicated to tracking my mood, but this time I put it next to the habit tracker. That's also because I couldn't think of a clever way to set up the mood tracker so that it goes well with the theme. Do you find mood trackers to be especially tricky to set up just because it's become customary to make them extra artistic? I certainly do. I've explained how I do my habit trackers in my previous videos, but it's basically a big box with habit symbols on the x-axis and dates on the y-axis. For each habit that I do on a certain day, I put a dot. I used this setup instead of individual calendars for each habit because it's easier and quicker this way, and I'm very lazy. For moods, I'm using a color-coded system, which usually consists of 6 different moods. I'm probably going to try and make a separate video on how I do the budget planner once I figure out how to use it and what works for the specific setup. And by the way, the face drawing I did in the corner is also a copy of this drawing by an artist named Catrinelli. Moving on to the final pages of this setup, the weekly spread. The idea I had for this month is that I'm going to draw famous and inspiring women each week. It's a pretty ambitious idea, and we'll see how I'm going to manage it. For the first week of March, I chose to draw Marie Curie, who is a French physicist and chemist and the first woman to get a Nobel Prize. Some quick facts about Marie Curie. She discovered 2 chemical elements, polonium and radium, and she named polonium after Poland, her native country. I used this photo as a reference when drawing Marie. I think I did a decent job considering I don't draw very well, especially human faces, like I said before. Drawing hair was particularly tricky for some reason, and I didn't know what color to make her skin and hair, since most photos of her that I found are black and white. I filled the empty spaces with simple drawings, such as a couple of color blobs, an arch/rainbow, and a simple dot pattern. The layout for this weekly is pretty simple because I didn't want anything to take away from the drawing and the quote. The quote is by Mary herself, and it says, "Nothing in life is to be feared, it is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more, so that we may fear less." By the way, I discovered a pretty great way to find out which font works for the particular text you're going to use in your bullet journal. Most websites where you can download fonts have previews where you can paste your text and see what it will look like with this font. You can paste your text, get the preview, and copy it into your bullet journal, either by hand or by printing it out. I'll leave a link to the website I used in the description below. I finish up by writing the names of the weekdays and sticking a few stickers and washi tapes. And the March setup is finished. I think it turned out pretty well. Please stay for the final flip through and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe if you want to see more from me. Bye!